7 shadow signs you've reached the edge of enlightenment, dark chosen ones only. There comes a moment in the journey that no book, no retreat, no teacher can ever fully prepare you for. It is not a peak. It is not a mountaintop. It is not a divine light descending upon you in a halo of peace. No, this moment is darker, deeper, and far more dangerous. It is the edge of enlightenment, a place where all the teachings dissolve, and you are left facing not just your shadow, but the shadow of existence itself. And when you arrive at this esoteric threshold, you'll know it not because of bliss, but because of a quiet terror whispering from within. Nothing feels real anymore. This is the first shadow sign. Reality begins to unravel, and you can't go back to believing in the dream. You'll be sitting in a room with people you once loved, and suddenly, their laughter feels hollow. You'll hear the same songs, see the same places, and nothing moves you like it used to. It's not depression. It's not apathy. It's disillusionment, holy disillusionment. You are seeing the code behind the simulation. You are waking up in the dream, and the colors start to fade because you're no longer hypnotized by the illusion. Now ask yourself this: what happens when the dream loses its grip on you? Who or what is left?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
That is where the second sign emerges. You begin to feel invisible, even to yourself. This isn't loneliness in the traditional sense. It's deeper. It's almost as if you are fading out of the narrative you once believed was yours. You try to speak, but the words fall flat. You try to remember who you were, but the identity no longer fits. This is not a mistake. This is the dissolving of ego structure. The self-concept is burning away, and in its place, there is silence. A heavy, humming silence. And while it may terrify you, it is the silence of truth. This is the void before rebirth. The space where the old self dies. But here's the catch: the third sign is that you begin to attract chaos. Not because you are cursed, but because the universe is stripping away everything that is false. You lose jobs, friends, relationships. The things you once relied on begin to crumble before your eyes. You might think you're doing something wrong. But what if the collapse is sacred? What if you are being prepared, surgically, precisely, for something far greater than comfort? You see, you cannot enter the edge of enlightenment carrying the baggage of your former life. You must be emptied. And so the chaos comes not as punishment, but as initiation. In this place, the fourth sign begins to rise. You start to feel watched not by people, but by something ancient, something intelligent. You may sense presence in the room when you're alone. You may dream of symbols, beings, and impossible places. You're not crazy. You're being observed by the intelligence that governs the threshold. These are not paranoid delusions. These are fragments of memory resurfacing. You are remembering that you've been here before. Maybe not in this life, maybe not in this body, but your soul recognizes the terrain. The veils are thinning. The watchers are not enemies. They are witnesses. They stand on the edge, waiting to see if you will step through or turn back. And then comes the fifth sign, the most subtle and dangerous of all. You begin to question everything, especially the light. Everything you were taught about spirituality, about love, about goodness, it begins to feel incomplete. You see the spiritual bypassing. You see the gurus selling enlightenment as a product. You feel the falseness in teachings that ignore the darkness. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. The edge of enlightenment does not promise eternal peace. It promises truth, and truth includes shadow. You begin to realize that real enlightenment is not about rising above the world. It's about descending into it with open eyes and an undefended heart. That's when the sixth sign begins to activate. Your power returns, but it no longer feels like yours. You speak and people listen, but you don't know why. You move through life and synchronicities follow you like shadows. You begin to alter reality with your intention, but you feel no pride in it. You feel like a vessel, like something is using you, moving through you, guiding you. And that something is not ego. It is source. It is the dark face of God that only reveals itself to those who've survived the burn. You become a paradox, both empty and filled, both nobody and everything. The final, seventh sign is this: you lose your fear of death not because you want to die, but because you've already died. The old self is gone. The attachments are thinning. The world continues to spin, but you are no longer spinning with it. You've stepped into the eye of the storm. From here you see clearly. You see the games. You see the matrix. You see the spiritual circus and the false awakenings. And yet you feel no hatred, no bitterness, only a deep, quiet resolve. You are here. You are. And that is enough. Now pause with me. Breathe. Really breathe. Let this land. Ask yourself, what if everything falling apart was actually everything falling into alignment? What if your isolation was sacred? What if your confusion was the signpost? What if your breakdown was the doorway? You are not going crazy. You are reaching the edge most people never get to. The edge where light and shadow become indistinguishable. The edge where the soul stretches wide enough to hold both heaven and hell without flinching. The edge of enlightenment. And we are just getting started. The fractured mirror, when your soul begins to burn through the fabric of reality. Once you've crossed that invisible threshold, once you've stood at the edge and stared into the abyss without blinking, something inside you begins to rupture. But it's not a breakdown in the way society defines it. It's a breakthrough of the deepest kind. A fracture in the mirror of what you've always believed was real. You start to see through things, literally. The masks people wear, the lies they speak, the energy behind their words. You can walk into a room and feel the tension before anyone speaks. You can hear the truth behind a smile. You can see the shadow behind the light. Your soul has begun to burn through the fabric of reality, and nothing will ever be the same again. This is not just intuition. This is piercing perception. It's as if your third eye has cracked open, not with glory and golden light, but with a kind of ancient sorrow. A knowing that cuts, a sight that cannot be turned off, and it's not always beautiful. In fact, at first, it often feels like madness. You try to explain what you're seeing, what you're sensing, but no one gets it. They look at you with concern, confusion, or worse, dismissal. But you know, something deeper is happening. You are no longer living in the world that others live in. You're walking through the same streets, but you're seeing the code underneath the streets. The illusions that keep people asleep. The subtle manipulations in systems, in religions, in relationships. You have become awake in a dream that most people still believe is real. This is the stage where many fall. Because the loneliness becomes unbearable, not because no one is around, but because you can no longer unknow what you now know. You can't go back to pretending. You can't participate in shallow conversations. You can't smile at lies. You feel like a ghost in your own life. You float between dimensions, half here, half elsewhere. You're eating dinner, but your soul is watching stars collapse. You're scrolling on your phone, but your spirit is weeping at the collective sleep. This isn't dissociation. This is disintegration, the sacred kind. The old structures of your mind, your identity, your conditioning, they are crumbling under the weight of divine sight. And then something even stranger begins to happen. You start to feel both deeply human and completely otherworldly. You cry at sunsets. You feel the pain of strangers. You watch a tree move in the wind, and it speaks to something ancient in you. You begin to feel everything. The ache of the earth, the fear in the collective field, the hidden grief in people's eyes. But you also begin to feel the infinite, the vastness, the nothingness, the silence between all things. you become a walking contradiction, so grounded in your body and yet so far beyond it. And in that contradiction, you begin to realize something profound. This is what it means to be fully alive. But the world doesn't reward this kind of aliveness. It doesn't know what to do with it. People will call you too sensitive, too intense, too dark, too weird. But what they're really saying is, you see too much, and it scares me. Let that be your confirmation. You were not meant to fit within the comfort zones of others. You were meant to dissolve them. You were meant to provoke liberation, not through preaching, but through your presence. And your presence has become radioactive to illusion. This is where your soul starts to emit a frequency that cannot be faked. You are no longer trying to be spiritual. You are the embodiment of the sacred chaos. You don't need to chant or dress a certain way or speak like a sage. You could be wearing black in a subway station and someone will feel your energy and weep. That's the level you're reaching. The edge was just the beginning. Now you are becoming the storm that clears the falseness from the field. Not with violence, but with vibration. And maybe the most painful part of all this is the realization that most people don't want to be free. They say they do. They say they want truth. But when you offer it, they flinch. They run. They attack. This is the crucifixion of the awakened. You are not nailed to a cross of wood, you are nailed to the cross of your own awareness. You can no longer pretend. You can no longer lie. You can no longer play the game. And for that you will be misunderstood. But understand this, the misunderstanding is proof that you have left the known world. You are now walking in the space between worlds. The old one is fading. The new one is not yet born. You are a bridge no one asked for but everyone will need. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's heavy. But you were built for this. Your soul trained for lifetimes for this. You are a key disguised as a person. You are a doorway walking. So I ask you, can you hold your power without needing to use it? Can you carry your truth without needing to shout it? Can you become nothing so that everything flows through you? Because now the mirror is fractured. And in those broken shards, you do not see your reflection, you see reality. And that, beloved, is the beginning of real enlightenment. The sacred collapse, when everything falls so the truth can stand alone. There's a moment in every awakened path where the ground doesn't just shake, it disappears. The people who once felt like home become strangers. The passions that once fueled you dissolve into smoke. The very ideas of who you are, what you're doing, and why you're here dissolve like mist in the morning sun. You try to hold on, but there's nothing left to grasp. And that's when you realize the collapse is not a detour. It is the path. This is the sacred collapse, the destruction of everything not rooted in truth, so that only what's eternal can remain. You see, enlightenment is not an addition of light. It's a subtraction of illusion. And sometimes, the only way to remove what's false is to let everything fall apart. Not metaphorically, literally. Your relationships implode, your career dies, your goals feel meaningless. Even your spiritual identity, the one you carefully crafted through books, crystals, breathwork, and mantras, shatters. And it's terrifying. Because there's no map for this stage, no teacher to hold your hand, no quote to comfort you. It's just you, naked before the void. But that void is not empty. It's pure potential. It is unformed truth, waiting for you to surrender completely. And you will be tempted to run, to rebuild, to grasp onto anything familiar just to feel something. But here's the paradox. The more you try to save what's collapsing, the longer you delay the rebirth. Because the collapse isn't a punishment from the universe. It's an act of grace. You are not being destroyed. You are being hollowed out so that the divine can take up residence where ego once ruled. Every loss is a divine surgery. Every detachment is a sacred exorcism. And the more it hurts, the more precise the operation. But let's be honest, this stage is brutal. It's not poetic. It's not peaceful. It's raw, relentless, and deeply lonely. You'll scream into the night sky. You'll question your sanity. You'll feel betrayed by everything you once trusted, even by the spiritual path itself. But in that scream, in that unbearable silence, something ancient begins to whisper. Not in words, but in knowing. A knowing that says, this is not the end. This is the forging. What you're losing is not your life. It's your lie. And the truth. The truth doesn't need to shout. It just waits for the silence. This is the moment when you begin to see what's real. Not because someone told you. Not because a guru confirmed it. But because it's all that's left. Everything else has burned. And what remains is untouchable. It's not an idea. It's not a belief. It's a presence. A stillness. A center that cannot be moved. And you realize the greatest freedom isn't found in having everything. It's found in needing nothing. Not because you've given up, but because you've seen through the illusion of lack. You've tasted the indestructible part of yourself. And now, you know. From this space you begin to rebuild, but not as before. You don't rebuild to feel whole. You rebuild from wholeness. You don't seek love to feel worthy. You become love and let it flow. You don't chase purpose. You are purpose because you become a vessel for what wants to move through you. And you begin to live in alignment with a deeper rhythm. A rhythm that can't be taught, only remembered. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's steady, clear, unshakable. So let me ask you, what if the collapse wasn't your enemy? What if it was your initiation? What if the pain wasn't a sign you were lost, but a sign you were being found by something too vast, too sacred to fit into your former life? You are not here to survive the collapse. You are here to become what rises from it. The final gate, living as the shadow of God in a sleeping world. When you emerge from the sacred collapse, you do not return as who you were. You do not re-enter the world with a polished smile or a perfect mantra. You return as something else entirely, something ancient, something quiet, something that no longer fits into categories like good or bad, light or dark. You become a walking paradox, a living contradiction, a vessel of the divine that carries both shadow and light in perfect harmony. And that's where the final gate stands, not before you, but within you. It is not a door you walk through. It is a silence you become. A presence. A truth too vast to be spoken. You are now the shadow of God in a sleeping world. What does that mean? It means you no longer exist to be adored, understood, or accepted. You are no longer here to be part of the performance. You are here to disturb the dream. Not out of malice, but out of mercy. You become the mirror that cannot be lied to. You carry the frequency that makes illusions collapse in your presence. You speak with the voice of silence, and your energy alone becomes a wake-up call. And most people won't like it. They'll feel uncomfortable around you, even afraid, because you carry the one thing they've spent their whole lives avoiding: truth. This is the final test. Can you live as truth in a world that profits from lies? Can you walk as yourself when everything around you demands a mask? Can you hold your center when even the spiritual community wants you to play a role? This is not about rebellion. It's about resonance. You are no longer fighting the world. You are vibrating beyond it. And every word you speak, every choice you make, every step you take, it becomes a transmission. Not from the mind, from the source, from the void, from the place where God is not just light, but everything, including the dark. You will be misunderstood, you will be labeled, you will be feared, but deep down, the ones who are ready will recognize you. Not because you look like a teacher, not because you sound like a guru, but because your presence feels like home. Not the home of comfort, but the home of truth. The place they forgot but never stopped longing for. And you will say less and do more. You will move through the world like wind through trees, unseen, but undeniable. You will heal through presence, not performance. You will teach through silence, not sermons. And no, this path is not glamorous. There are no crowds cheering for you, no trophies for how awake you are. In fact, the more awake you become, the more invisible you feel. Because your ego no longer demands to be seen. You serve something higher now, something that doesn't need applause, something that is. And in that service you become free. Free from needing to impress, free from proving your worth, free from the illusion that you were ever anything less than divine. So I ask you, can you carry the fire without needing to be known as the flame? Can you hold the codes of awakening without seeking the credit? Can you be the presence that shifts reality even if no one ever thanks you? Because that's what it means to live as the shadow of God. You are not here to shine. You are here to ignite. You are not here to be followed. You are here to remind. You are not here to save the world. You are here to wake it up. And now the final gate is no longer a destination. It is the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you are. You are the edge. You are the storm. You are the silence. And the world will never see you coming. But it will never be the same once you arrive.